it's really easy to throw around a word like compassion as if it's an entirely good thing. But, what if compassion leads you to have complete contempt for your roommates? And, in this case, her roommates are parents raising kids. She's sketched out for you a complex situation. What if compassion makes you want to vomit every time you smell cooking meat coming from the kitchen that's next to your bedroom, or fills you with rage and contempt for the people you're living with and the excuses they're making and teaching their kids that it's okay to eat meat and drink milk and so on. Compassion can, compassion can lead to your ruin. It can lead to a downward spiral of depressive and suicidal feelings. As much as anything else can.
À-bas-le-ciel.
A lot of things about that vegan lifestyle, you don't know whether to laugh or to cry. And in the old days on this channel, I used to have a lot of videos basically subtitled, like, "The struggle is real." I remember writing a lot of comments ending with, "The struggle is real." Actually, life as a vegan was really hard and sorrowful and awful. And that was such a contrast to the propaganda that was in fashion at the time for vegans. Sometimes you laugh about it, sometimes you cry about it.
Yeah.
I crossed swords recently with these idiots who are attached to AIU's channel. AIU is Atheism is Unstoppable. And one of the things they were saying that I disagreed with, you kind of half overheard this, you were busy doing more meaningful things. But they were claiming that, like, the thing they hated about vegans was that these vegans lived their whole lives only surrounded by only talking to other vegans, like they didn't mix with meat eaters or non-vegans. And I said to them, look, like just think through what you're saying. This can't possibly be true. Almost all vegans, your parents eat meat. All the friends you had in high school or college eat meat. Your coworkers eat meat. I said, it's just not true. Like, even if you wanted to live only surrounded by other vegans, you live your whole life constantly in the company of meat eaters, often in much closer company than you can stand to bear. So that brings me to this comment. This is a comment on Reddit, and you're gonna see it's as real as it gets. I'm an ethical vegan living with non-vegan roommates, and I have to leave for hours every time. Okay, bad reading wise. Do you want to put on? So it's a female author. Should I put on a female?
Okay, I can read it.
You want to read it? Okay,
sure.
It's a female author. You take it.
Okay. I'm an ethical vegan living with non-vegan roommates, and I have to leave for hours every time they cook something. The flesh and secretions of tortured animals. The smell stresses me out badly enough and is unbearable. Think Jews having to smell the burning flesh of their family members, but replace it with someone who cares about animals being forced to smell their flesh and secretions cooking. But the kitchen is always filthy, and the contamination makes it so...
Yep.
Makes it so I'm unable to cook any real meals.
Yeah. You think reading voiceovers isn't a real job, and you do this, now you realize it's a real job. It's a real profession. Getting good at doing voiceovers. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Then my roommates have started complaining that they feel that they can't always cook what they want because sometimes they actually show some decency and think to themselves, but that will bother her. I'm forced to kiss their asses because I don't want to cause conflict with their kids around, which will only backfire and force them to justify abusing animals to their kids. I'm also a full-time student on top of working for them and don't have time to be leaving for hours on top of being too stressed out to focus on studying after I get back.
So this is only point 1 in the list. You might notice the number 1 at the start of it.
Oh, okay.
And these are basically reasons why being vegan is destroying her life and she's miserable and she wants to kill herself. She's desperately unhappy.
Yeah.
This is the kind of... So, as a vegan, you've never been in this kind of situation. You went vegan after you finished college. Well,
yeah, and I immediately forced my ex-boyfriend to go vegan.
Right. So you were living with another vegan because he didn't have a choice, naturally.
Yeah.
You guys are sharing a room together, but you can imagine, in college, you used to share an apartment.
Yes.
With 4 other girls or something, I forget.
Yeah, there were always
and
other
their
people
boyfriends
coming in and out. Yeah, so it was like 7 people at one time or another.
Right, so like 7 people sharing a kitchen kind of thing. And you can imagine it really would have been awful trying to be vegan in that context. Yeah, and there are other issues here like the smell and the psychology. I think some vegans would stop short of saying this is like smelling your family members being burned in the Holocaust.
Yeah, just thinking of the logistics too, having to share cutting boards with people who have been cutting meat on it.
Right, but I just say I respect it. I understand why she says that way and so on. Yeah. So we continue. Point 2.
Okay. My room is right next to the kitchen, and I'm always hearing bangs and the mom yelling at her kids. And I have hyperacusis to top it off, so that on top of the smells and contamination, because they have kids and aren't clean people themselves, makes it borderline torture living here.
They could use some commas, but I mean, when you're miserable and depressed and so on. So hyperacusis I've actually never heard of before. I assume
it's sensitivity to sound.
Okay, so extremely acute hearing. When I was younger, that was a problem. I never had a diagnosis or anything. But yeah. So I just mentioned part of the context for this. The reason why I found this comment, I think I knew this woman fully 5 years ago. Now, knew her via the internet, but we chatted through something like Skype, and that we had some email back and forth. So someone I believe I knew. I could be wrong, but I saw this comment on Reddit and I was like, I knew her. So it was someone where actually I think I know the surrounding situation. Now, that doesn't really matter. I'm presenting that in this video partly because this is something all of us can relate to. Yeah. And it's something that I think exactly unsympathetic meat eaters, like those people I was debating with, the people from the AIU subculture, these people who might be debated me over Discord online.
Yeah, they might not think about it.
Right.
I think they don't think about vegans in these terms.
Right. They profoundly lack sympathy for vegans. But even,
Yeah, because it's probably what's just shown in, what people want to show, that they live this lifestyle where everybody makes smoothies and
it is, but it's also the moral superiority, moral inferiority thing. The last time I bought you vegan ice cream bars, I bought you coconut milk ice cream bars. The woman, who seemed like a woman at a very low level of education at the checkout line, she was an older woman. I would guess she was 60, but she just seemed like someone who never went past even primary school, frankly, talking to her. And she said to me, very simply, she was like, "Oh, I've never tried these before." And they were like $2 off. So they were like, $5 Canadian, and she said, and she said in a kind of garbled way, she was wondering if they were any good. And, the first thing I said was, well, I'm vegan. I said, so, I eat this kind of stuff all the time. And she was a little bit confused by that. And she said, yes, I understand. You're much better than all of us. But what I wonder is if they taste good, And, she really didn't mean it in a mean way. But to her, my answer that I'm vegan is irrelevant. You know what I mean? She wants to know if the ice cream bar tastes good. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's a vegan product, so I'm saying I'm vegan. You know what I mean? But that's, I thought, so you work in a grocery store, and that's your reaction to vegan. To you, vegan means morally superior. And I think these people, so I mean, if you guys don't know, it was famous on the internet for like 3 days. People were like, oh wow, Eisel talked to Amy K and these people from AIU server, and he really handed them. It was pretty vicious. It was a pretty brutal. There's a side of my character you've actually literally never seen before. You've never seen me really lay into somebody psychologically, but it was a kind of demolition. I mean, psychologically,
totally murked her.
So psychologically and mostly ethically, but it was it was a whole room of people. It was me against like 4 or 5 people, but it really was about ethics. It was really saying no to people who don't hold yourselves to any standard and so on. But it was a really, really strange kind of internet confrontation, and there are people who do that for a living. They're full-time drama queens on YouTube, so I think they can take it. And I've chatted with them since then. They're it's okay, but from their perspective, they see vegans as morally superior. And again, that's why my conversation with them started with them reproaching vegans for only living amongst other vegans. And it's like, what are you saying? Like, that's not true for any of us. Yeah. Or it's only true for exactly people like us. Right. It's true if you're in a couple and you're...
Yeah, I actually see Facebook posts on the groups that I'm a member of, people looking for vegan roommates because of this.
Yes, right.
I know it's a struggle for people.
Well, also, but I mean, in reality, you and I are just kind of cut off a little bit from the rest of society. Yeah. Now, wait, keeping on the wheel. Vegan, and we don't drink alcohol. Yeah. And we don't watch ice hockey. We don't watch football. Yeah. I mean, but, there are many things cutting us off from the mainstream of the culture we happen to be living in.
Yeah, there was, for about 2 months last year, I lived with my parents who are meat-eating, typical Americans who, watch hockey and stuff. So.
But, I mean, exactly this kind of technology, in the 21st century, this computer and the internet and so on, it makes it easier than ever to live in isolation. Yeah. In my grandparents' day, people used to meet up and play cards. They used to meet up and play, cribbage, or they'd go and play different types of sports that don't require you to be an athlete. Like, what's the one with the giant heavy rock on the ice? Curling. Curling?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm barely Canadian. I've been living in... I don't know this.
Okay.
I don't know this vocabulary. Canadian sports, they do curling.
Who's curling anymore?
Well, in the 1920s, in the 1920s and 1930s, people did.
Ships.
Yeah, no, exactly. People now play Xbox. They now, they don't do curling. But my point is, those things led to some level of social interaction. So I do think it's true. The vegans who only spend their time with other vegans are the people who, like this, really, I spent all my time with you. And that was true in China also. Mm-hmm. It's not like I had a ton of friends in China. We really lived a life, to ourselves. And we were very happy.
We didn't know anybody who was vegan in China.
Right. That's right. But also, again, it's not like people were beating down our door to be friends with us. In China, alcohol was a big area.
Friend.
Well, no, if I ate meat and drank alcohol, I really could have made friends in China. And a lot of people, when I first got there, they were giving me advice on that. But for them, their idea of socializing, especially, that was entirely built on getting drunk, eating meat, and sleeping with prostitutes or equivalent is also part of it. Mm. That's the real China. That's the sort of China you don't see on fashion television. All right, so let's go.
All right, number 3. I can't find a vegan roommate and can't afford living on my own.
Preach.
Yep, understandable.
Self-explanatory.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4. I have PTSD from being physically abused nearly daily for a decade of my life and am dealing with that on top of it.
Right.
Heavy. Oh, okay, number 5.
It keeps going.
I assume because they were getting shorter and shorter that this was winding down. But
no,
okay.
It's just getting started.
All right, number 5. Someone I used to love who is abusive has recently come back into my life, and when he isn't asking for nudes, he's treating me like shit.
Right.
I even ended up telling him I wanted to kill myself after he made a joke about not giving a shit about veganism. In other words, animals being tortured. I was desperate for him to understand how much pain it caused me, but he just insulted me for it and made me feel worse. I was only able to get him to promise to try to be nice to me and not mock animals being abused through nudes, basically. Oh, because that's...
through nudes, i.e. because he wants nude photographs. You see, it's, grammatically and syntactically, it's leaving a little bit up to your imagination. So she was able to make him stop through nudes. You see what I mean? Yeah. Carrot and stick.
Sounds like a great relationship. Okay.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Because that's how desperate I am, apparently. And tonight I told him I was in pain, and he acted like he didn't care, and it was a burden to him again.
Yeah, so, anyone watching this...
Should drop that bum.
Anyone who's watching feeling sorry for themselves in their relationship. So if this is the same girl I knew 5 years ago, I remember her then talking about this same guy. And already there were these red flags with him, like demanding nudes and stuff. And I didn't know her that well. I wasn't going to be like, look, you fucking kidding yourself. These are really serious red flags. But I remember it was like, wow, these are really serious red flags, this kind of behavior. Yes, I remember that 5 years ago, this already happening. As someone I only, I haven't talked to for 5 years. And if it's a totally different person, then maybe I'm assuming. But anyway, there are two people who have a lot of these things in common. All right, point 6.
Okay. I have no actual friends and no one to relate to, so I'm essentially forced to continue talking to number 5. The only people I've talked to regularly have just hurt me.
So, but look, I used to talk about stuff on my channel all the time. I mean, I know, the content of my channel has changed. We now have 20% more content about Aristotle and Socrates that nobody wants to hear, and maybe 80% less content about being a self-pitying, isolated vegan. But that was part of the original MO of my channel. I mean, if you remember the old videos where I really talked about isolation from your own family, isolation from your culture, isolation from the few friends you might have. This was grist for the mill here on à-bas-le-ciel. And I think, again, there's nothing ineluctable about it. There's nothing essential about veganism that leads to these things, but you can see how, extrinsically and accidentally, these things tend to go together. And that's probably, if it is the same person, that's probably why she became friends with me briefly 5 years ago, was exactly looking for other vegans on the internet, looking for people who cared about these issues, looking for somebody to talk to. Yeah. I
don't know. Before I was vegan, I didn't have very many friends anyway.
Yeah. Well, you you suck at life, so just kind of antisocial. Okay, but right. But I mean, what's the point of having friends? There is more than one point. But for me, ultimately, if you care about activism, you care about politics. Politics is a social enterprise. If you care about learning languages, we were talking about this a couple hours ago. Learning any language, you want to learn Cree, you want to learn Ojibwe, you want to learn Chinese. Really, communication with other people, ideally face-to-face. I still write email in Chinese, is a huge part of it. So a lot of the things that interest me in life make me value friendship for much more than just what friendship commonly connotes in our culture. Okay, number 7.
Okay, number 7. The only people in my life are telling me to go to therapy.
It's so easy to say, isn't it? Yeah.
But therapy couldn't change reality. Give me a place to live, and I wouldn't be able to trust the therapist unless they were an ethical vegan. Right. So it would only cause me to be more stressed out beneath any facade.
Right. So this is a real issue. We've talked about this in a bunch of different contexts. Yeah. People say get professional help. What if there is no professional help? What if the professional help you can get, the therapist, fundamentally has no sympathy with you because they regard veganism as crazy, or they regard the things that are real sources of stress and misery in your life as unreasonable or crazy. You want someone who can relate to that. And like for me, so I went to a therapist with my ex-wife before we split up, where we went together. I guess you'd call it couples therapy or whatever.
Oh, really?
But I mean, having a therapist who can relate to intellectually or professionally what was going on in either of our lives is kind of asking a lot. And then beyond that, I mean, what is the function? What help can the therapist give you? Like in her case, the therapist can't give you a better place to live. They can't actually change any of the real problems. They can help you rehearse talking about those problems so you become more eloquent in discussing them.
Yeah.
But
well.
Yeah.
She did mention she has been physically abused, and she has PTSD from that. So.
Yes, and anyway,
it's not just about
Okay, you're right. You're right.
She's got this horribly abusive guy. Or okay, sounds pretty abusive, asking for nudes and having these weird transactions between this.
She's got a relationship she wants to get out of, but it is also the only relationship she has in her life. Which is very sad, but that's keeping all the real. If she loses this one guy who wants nude photos from her all the time, which is not necessarily evil, but it sounds awful in this case.
Yeah.
Then she's gonna be all alone.
Okay. Oh wow.
Yep.
All right. So she says, I want to die so fucking bad, and literally the only thing that's kept me alive for 7 years has been my responsibility to try to help the animals. But I feel like I can't even get to the point to significantly help animals because the process of getting into a position where I can takes too long and the wait is unbearably painful. I was on anxiety medication in the past, but got off of it and moved in with this family. And I thought I wouldn't need it since I wasn't being abused anymore. Also because it made me gain weight. Now I need something because I don't think anxiety medication is the answer. I can't move to another city with more vegans because I'm a full-time student and would have to wait for the semester to end. But I can't live like this anymore.
Yep.
Oh.
And then after that, kind of radio silence. Yeah. So again, I don't know if this is the particular person I knew, but whether or not it's a complete stranger, my heart goes out to her. Yeah. And, I don't know, all of us are in situations that are only degrees of difference separated from that. I think all of us can imagine being trapped in those circumstances, or we've been in circumstances, somewhere along those lines. And anyway, I'm very cagey about this because of the legacy of Buddhism also. It's really easy to throw around a word like compassion as if it's an entirely good thing. And, my catchphrase, I talk about compassion being an analytical tool and so on, But, what if compassion leads you to have complete contempt for your roommates? And, in this case, her roommates are parents raising kids. She's sketched out for you a complex situation. What if compassion makes you want to vomit every time you smell cooking meat coming from the kitchen that's next to your bedroom, or fills you with rage and contempt for the people you're living with and the excuses they're making and teaching their kids that it's okay to eat meat and drink milk and so on. Compassion can lead to your ruin. It can lead to a downward spiral of depressive and suicidal feelings, as much as anything else can. Maybe more than most. So to put this into context, what I was going to compare it to, there's a YouTube channel called So You're Dating a Vegan.
Is his girlfriend still not vegan? She annoys me. She is not funny, clever, or pretty enough to tolerate her animal murder. Leave that ignorant girl if she is not changed by now.
That's me.
Well, That's my wife you're talking about there.
Yeah.
You remember those guys?
Yeah.
And they got a lot of flack from their viewers lately because they were dating and they got married. I assume they got married after they started the YouTube channel. I never checked. And she, the woman in the couple, she's still never, converted to veganism.
Yeah.
And, so they get messages from people in their audience saying, look, you should drop that bomb. You should break up with her if she's not vegan yet. And again, I mean, on the one hand, maybe as vegans, people can relate to that. But on the other hand, I mean, it's a lonely road. I think a lot of people want to cling to the only person they've got who loves them or cares about them in their life, even if they're deeply flawed, even if they're demanding nude photos all the time, or whatever the situation is, despite the terrible things that are wrong with them, because nobody is quite so alone as a lonely vegan, in this world. You think you know what it's like to be alone, but you can't even pick up a chocolate bar at 7-Eleven to cheer yourself up or something as a vegan. I mean, I know it's, and what we're talking about is shallow, but it's real. The feeling of persecution, the feeling of having closed doors all around you, the feeling of being in a culture that's essentially and inherently evil. It's based on the exploitation of animals and ecologically unsustainable things. The feeling that, all the people around you are fundamentally immoral and unethical. You can sell all that as compassion, the compassionate lifestyle. But, the dude on So You're Dating a Vegan, I don't know their names, but he's red-haired, isn't he? And with a red-haired dude, he asked his wife at one point, would you consider becoming vegan in exchange if I take up rock climbing?
I'll become a rock climber if you become vegan.
And you'll come to the gym?
Every time that you go to the gym?
No, not every time.
Yeah, I'll come to the gym.
No, I can't make you do a hobby that you don't like.
But it'd be in exchange for something that you don't like.
No. That's not sustainable, you know that.
On whose end?
On neither of us' end.
Oh, really?
I can't force you into a hobby. A hobby is something you do because you enjoy it.
Yeah. I would rather spend my time doing things besides climbing walls.
Yeah. It's cool. That's what I got married for.
I think we should watch Earthlings.
Ooh.
And, they chit-chat about it. And, of course, she basically says no. But, of course, it's nothing like rock climbing. Mm-hmm. I mean, Isaac, a.k.a. Ask Yourself, he always uses these really extreme examples. If people say they're going to be vegan 5 days a week and not on weekends, it's like, oh, so are you against slavery 5 days a week and not on weekends? Do you refuse to engage in rape 5 days a week but not on weekends?
Right, it's a moral, ethical choice.
Right. That's right.
Not me.
That's right. And so again, this is the first premise of the video. What I'm mentioning in the first place is just that in contrast to sort of strangely judgmental perception of some of these outsiders who are castigating veganism, people who regard us as morally superior, smug, and exclusivist or exclusionist, as trying to exclude from our lives any kind of meat eaters, I think, the kind of lonesome, lamentable reality is that for a lot of vegans, like the woman who wrote this message, they're desperate to be with somebody. They're desperate to be loved and supported and appreciated in a world that seems incredibly bleak and hostile and, ethically antithetical to their basic assumptions about good and evil and what's acceptable and
the
what's
internet
not.
is a place where they can find those people, so maybe that's the impression that these people on the internet got, that's why vegans interact with only vegans online, because in real life you can't only interact with people who are vegan.
The internet is the exact opposite of reality that way, right? Like, so Ask Yourself has this Discord server, and there are all these people who can come on there and talk about veganism. They can talk about it from this very peculiar logical perspective that Ask Yourself is, really invented from, he really created a new kind of fashion within veganism for this style of argumentation, right? But each one of those people is alone. You know what I mean? Like, you can call that a community, it's not, I mean, you said you can find other vegans on the internet. I think you can search for them. But I mean, this woman writing this, do you think she's found anyone on the internet? I think she's all alone. I think she's writing this message now at the end of her rope after however many years of being vegan. And she's utterly she's utterly failed to find and keep friends made over the internet. And, you know, it's true. You can rant on the internet. Maybe somebody will hear it. Maybe somebody will listen. It's better than ranting at a wall. But it's actually not that different from ranting at a wall. You're ranting at a glowing box that you've got on the wall. And, yeah, you're right. Meat eaters can perceive us as having real cohesion and community from what they see on the internet. But actually what you're seeing on the internet is a symptom of the exact opposite of the mournful isolation that so much of us live in. So that's it, guys. Veganism. The struggle is real.
À-bas-le-ciel.